Hello and welcome to this video. We're going to take a look at making an analog style hi-hat in Voltage Modular. So this has been inspired by a track that I love. I listen to probably more than I should do, but Inspector Norse by Todd Terje. So if you can find that on YouTube, I'll put a link in the description, but obviously I'm not going to play it in here because even if you put in a 5-second snippet of it, you get a copyright strike. So I'm not going to do that, but you can listen to it in the link in the description. But effectively, this is creating an analog style hi-hat. So rather than making one which is just a sample and is the same every time, the idea with this is to try and get a bit of life into it. So first things first, we're going to need a noise generator. So there's the noise generator. So I'm only going to be using the nucleus default elements here. So you should have all of this. You could add to it with more things if you've got a higher version of Voltage. Obviously, on top of that, we're going to need a couple of other elements. So we're going to need an amplifier, which that's going to pass through. So let's just put that into the input there and then connect the output up. And then we're going to need to trigger this. And there's your basic, simple noise generator tied to an amplifier. And just as I play a note, it plays the sound. Now, it doesn't matter what pitch you play. I'm playing all over the keyboard here. It's always the same pitch because that's the true way that white noise should work. So we're going to look at how to change the tone of it now, in fact. So while that is obviously the most basic thing ever, it's pretty bad. So there's two things we need. We need to add in an envelope generator to control the amplifier so it's more than just on and off. And we're going to add in a filter. So first things first, let's add in the envelope generator. So there's the envelope generator. So we're going to take that gate from there and then the envelope out into the amplifier. So while initially it's the same, but we can control that. And most importantly, control the release time. So it sounds a little bit more musical. So that can be tweaked, as we'll see later on. So that's already a little bit more musical than it was. But the filter really is where we're going to have more control of the sound. So we're going to take that output from there, put it into the audio into the filter, and going to use bandpass. So this central one here I find is best for this kind of thing. And this could be your sort of basic one. You could just find a sound you like and play that. But we're going to go a little bit further with that. So first things first, let's make it react to velocity. Now this is pretty straightforward. So we're just going to tie in the velocity here into Freak Mod 1. Turn this up to about 12 o'clock to start off with and bring this down. And now, so if I hit really hard, we get quite a bright one, and if I hit really gently, you get a lower tone one. So this is controlling this like that. So you've got more playability. You can adjust this for how much velocity sensitivity. So these two controls are going to interact, but a bit of tweaking will get you that. So I'd probably turn that down a bit more and that up a bit more. So we're in a narrower range because we want to be somewhere from about here to here. So, but that's much more playable already. So a couple of minutes work, you've got something which reacts to velocity. So therefore it will be a little less straightforward and predictable. And it's not just changing volume. In fact, it's not changing volume. It's only changing tone depending on the velocity. So it will be better than a sampled one unless you'd spent a bit of time tweaking the samples, filter control, etc. So to make this more playable, typically what I would do is I would control this R slider via MIDI. So I'm going to do MIDI learn. I'm going to tweak knob number 1 on my Akai controller, and now I've got, and if you listen to Inspector Norse, you'll notice at the end of I think it's a 16 bar segment, the hi-hat does that. It opens up as it goes. So when you're getting towards the end of a section, a bit like you get, reverse white noise sweeps and this, that, and the other. It's just that bringing up of that release time, and then it goes back down. So just a little bit of programming of that, or playing that live and recording it in Cubase or whatever will will allow that to, again, add to the musicality of the arrangement, etc., and just put in a bit of interest in there. But we can do a bit more. So what I want to do is add in a bit of randomness. So even if you're playing the same velocity all the time, it would still change, as it would with most analog pieces of equipment, because, you know, they heat up and just start reacting weirdly. So this is playing on a pad on my keyboard where the velocity is always the same, and you can see the note's the same every time. It's really consistent. So to add in a bit of randomness, I came up with the idea of using a sample and hold. Okay, so what we're going to do is add in an extra noise generator. Oh, in fact, no, I'm going to use this noise generator. So add in the sample and hold here, and its input is going to come from the pink noise part of the noise generator. So it's just some noise. So basically this is going to be getting a random signal. And then what we're going to do is we're going to send this to the second frequency mod control. So we're going to put this onto external and then send this an external trigger from the trigger part of the CV out section here. And then its output is going to go to freq mod 2. And I'm going to turn the rate down just so it's slow and it's not going to change during the duration of a note. And now we've got some randomness. So I'm actually going to turn the velocity. No, I'm not. I'm going to just turn this up and play a note which is the same velocity every time. And you can hear that's now changing. Now, obviously, it's probably changing too much, but that would have been the same every time. So now by turning this down, just get a little bit of randomness in there. And again, it all adds to the interest in that, you know, tiny little part. And if you do this across all of the instruments in your piece, then there's some interest and variation going on. That is the difference between a sequence which sounds pretty boring and straight, and it's just got this subtle interest that you may not realize is happening. You know, a lot of these things, unless you sit down and really analyze them, you don't know why things like this work, but they work because there's lots of little bits changing, etc. And that can often be the difference between a dead sounding piece of music and something that sounds interesting. It's not necessarily the music. It can be lots of things going on, changing audio wise. So we've got that sample and hold, but there's one more thing I wanted to add. And what I want to add is the control of pitch. So if I play a different note on the keyboard, at the moment, if I play the bottom C on my little controller keyboard or the top C, it sounds the same. So it's nice to have a bit of variation, and you don't get that from the noise generator. If the noise generator was, let's say, sample based, and you were speeding up or slowing down a white noise sample, then the pitch of it would change. Pitch is in air quotes there. That doesn't happen with this because this is just a white noise generator and there's no real pitch to it. So we can change that a bit by using the filter, but unfortunately at the moment, both freq mod slots are full. So we need another way to do this, and the way that I came up with is using a 6-input mixer. So if we put in the mixer here, handily, this mixer can take these CV signals as well. So if we put pitch in, I'm just going to put the pitch straight into input 1, and you can see if I play that note, high note on my keyboard, you can see there it's quite a high pitch, and then when I go low, it changes. So this is mixing this CV, so I can take that and the sample and hold. So I'm going to unplug the sample and hold from there, put it into number 2, and we see the randomness of the sample and hold. You can see that's changing every time I'm playing this key. And then this output will then go to freq mod 2. Now we can see the signals are way too high at the moment, so we need to turn particularly the pitch one down, but the randomness down as well, and then we'll get much less of a... But now, if I play a high note, you can hear, compared to the low note, so here's the low note, high note, so you can hear the filters open up a bit more, and you've got control over this. So we can control that via this here, and any other signal sources you wanted to control it with, you can just mix them in on here. And this is also, I think, a good learning tool for this kind of stuff, because you can actually see the output of these modules. So even if you're not going to use it, you can just use it as a sort of visual feedback for you. So you can see that this module's outputting at a certain level and what it's actually doing, because with some of these, it can be pretty difficult to divine what's happening with them. But now we've got an eminently playable hi-hat sound, which has got MIDI control of the release time. And even if I don't change notes, and I try to be as consistent as possible, or I play a pad where it's totally consistent, it's changing each time. So with just 6 modules and a bit of tweaking, there you go, an analog style hi-hat, which is eminently playable and controllable. And I'm sure you could add in, MIDI control for these as well to allow this to change over time as well. But you can see how to do that in other videos on the channel. But I hope you found that useful, and I'll see you again soon.